Story number 1. I remember something that happened to me when I was young. It sounds so sensational and unreal that many think I'm full of crap. Then again, it could have been in my imagination, seeing that I was about 8 years old. But we were wards of the state. Foster children, living in a home at the time. A youth shelter. I remember that I would love to sit by the window when it would rain and just sit and think. One of these rainy days in particular, I was watching a can roll down the road due to the wind. This little Coke can suddenly stopped rolling at this man standing in the alley by the building that I lived in. He looked up at the window and saw me looking down at him. We locked eyes. As I furrowed my brow, trying to figure him out, he then lowered his head a little, gave me a chilling smile that made his demeanor seem sinister. Not friendly. It was a look of trying to deceive someone, trying to appear friendly, but I was not a normal child. I knew a bad person when I saw one. Given the fact that before that time in my life, most of the people weren't the friendliest to me. This man slowly raised his hand up as he simultaneously delivered that disturbing grin and a wave. When he raised his hand up to wave at me, using all of his fingers as his hand stood still, he flicked them back and forth, from the index finger back to the pinky. To give you an example of what I'm trying to illustrate, imagine being at a baseball game and the people in the crowd begin a wave, where everyone stands up and sits back down when they're supposed to, and it looks like a tsunami rolling through. That's what his fingers were doing. Very unsettling. He was unshaved. His face was as red as the Coke can that blew its way to his foot. He was wearing an Indianapolis Colts hat. Blue and stained with something all over. He then lowered his hand, the smile turned to an emotionless grimace. One that makes a crow fall from the sky if they saw it. He walked away. I would see this man 3 more times throughout that 1 year, in 3 different towns, with different foster parents. My sisters were the only ones that listened to me. They knew the world wasn't a pretty place, and that anything can happen. Other people have trouble understanding evil because they haven't experienced much evil. But after my sisters and I were split up in the system, I never saw him again. I got adopted when I was 10, and when I was 16, my adoptive parents had a 3-year-old girl. One night, after we got her to sleep, she began screaming from inside her bedroom. A blood-curdling scream. I immediately ran in there and got her. She slept in a different room that night. The next morning at the breakfast table, we asked her what she saw. She said, "I saw a man with a red face and a hat, trying to get me out of my crib." I choked on my food, and I could feel myself going as white as a ghost. My friend saw that I had reacted the way I did, but chose not to ask me until later, so we wouldn't freak the little one out. I explained to them about the man that I had seen as a child, repetitively, and I believe that he was an evil spirit. A demon, or an entity that is just stuck here. But that let me know, that very day, that it still followed me. I just got too old to see it. Children see an entirely different world than we do, and it's not always pleasant. Story number 2. I can't seem to figure out what I just encountered tonight. I think I might be out of my mind. For some backstory, sometimes when I can't sleep I go sit out back at the family graveyard. I know it's not like this everywhere, but here in Tennessee you're allowed to bury your family right on your property. My family has owned this land for generations, and there are 2 family cemeteries here. One that is more recent, the one where I usually hang out, is well maintained and all the graves have nicely upkept grave houses. One is much older, a few hundred feet behind the newer one. The grave houses have mostly rotted away and the tombstones have faded to a point where they cannot be read anymore. It's separated from the other cemetery by a row of trees. I don't keep that one up as much, because I don't really know who's in those graves. They're so old and dilapidated it would take a lot of time and money I don't have to restore them. Anyways, while I was out at the new cemetery I heard crying coming from the old one. It sounded like a man, and like a very real man, not faint or ghastly at all. Peeking through the tree line I couldn't see much, but I saw a glowing light like maybe that of a candle. There shouldn't be any other people in this lot. It's private property, so I am a little put off. I'm not the only descendant of the people buried there. Maybe he is older. Maybe he knew them. I always carry an old pistol my father gave me when I'm out in the wooded areas of these hills, just in case I wander into some wildlife that would rather make lunch than friends. I wasn't too frightened by the idea of approaching the man I heard, but when I came through the tree lane, I felt my heart fall into my kneecaps as I was frozen by fear and confusion. It wasn't a man. Hunkered over, scavenging through one of the graves under an old decrepit grave house, was a creature like I've never witnessed before. It looked like a coyote, but was humanoid like a werewolf. It looked emaciated and mangy. Its head was mostly skeletal with barely any skin left. When it turned to face me, I realized what I had seen earlier was not a candle, but the orange glow of the creature's eyes. I could still hear the crying, but it didn't seem to be coming from the coyote thing. It raised one of its paws to its mouth, revealing long, sharp, bony finger-like claws. When I tried to move, it screeched loud, making a sound as if a human were being torn limb for limb. I considered shooting it, but it didn't move toward me, and I didn't know how fast it was. It just stared at me before slowly moving on to digging through another forgotten grave. When it was no longer looking at me anymore, I ran as fast as I could back to my house and locked all my doors. I'm still not sure what that was. When I was little, my mom, a very traditional Melungeon woman, said that we make grave houses to protect from a creature that devours unprotected or lost souls. She called it a Dagagna, and she said they come from humans who are cursed by their unforgivable actions like cannibalism, rape, slavery, etc. They are cursed to roam the earth with an insatiable hunger, looking for souls to eat up. Was what I saw Dagagna? Were the cries coming from it or the soul it was eating? I'm thinking it's time to clean up those old graves and give them new homes. Story number 3. I opened my eyes on my bed. It was dark. I mistakenly tried to move my finger, then realized I couldn't. I felt a presence in the room moving around. I couldn't see anything, but I knew something was in the room. It didn't feel human. I tried to move my body, but it seems that the force of gravity has become stronger. I began sweating profusely. The only thing I could move were my eyes. I strained to see, but whatever was in my room was invincible. I felt the presence at the foot of my bed. I tried screaming, but no sound came out. I gathered strength and managed to raise my hand, but couldn't feel anything. I felt the presence close to me. That's when I managed to push myself off the bed and, with the very last strength in my body, started crawling on the floor to my parents' room. I felt the presence following me. I mustered up more strength to move faster and faster. Finally got to my parents' room. I tried waking them up, but couldn't. It was as if they couldn't feel me. I tried screaming their names, but no sound came out of my mouth. The presence entered the room and was coming close to me. I tried screaming again. Suddenly I woke up on my bed. Everything felt the same except I wasn't feeling the presence anymore. I quickly checked if I could move and realized I could. Then I quickly went to sleep with my parents. I told my family everything the next day, but they all said it was just a dream. I tried to tell myself every day that it was just a dream, but I'm convinced it wasn't because it felt so real. Thanks for sticking around to hear these stories. I hope you enjoyed your time here. If you did, please consider leaving a like on this video, as it really helps my channel out. If you're hungry for more content like this, subscribe to us, Dark Recaps. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.